So I'm talking to you all about Achan's sin. If you remember Achan in the Bible, he sinned and he caused Joshua and the Israelites to face destruction and defeat. Now I'm going to be talking about, I'm paraphrasing from the book of Joshua, chapter 6 and 7. As you can remember, when they were getting ready to have the battle at Jericho, the Lord had given Joshua specific instructions, and he told him that he was going to deliver their enemies into his hand, meaning they were going to defeat their enemies. And they were supposed to go walk around the walls of Jericho. And they were going to go around each day carrying the ark of the ark in their hands. The 7 priests were supposed to walk around. And on the first 6 days, they were not supposed to say anything. They were going to be silent and quiet. Then on the 7th day, they would shout and the walls would come down. And they would go in and defeat the land. They would take out everything and destroy everything. And the Lord had specifically told Joshua that they were not supposed to take anything that was accursed. They were not supposed to take anything because these people were wicked, and anything they kept that belonged to them would be considered cursed. And then the silver and gold was supposed to go to God. And so what had happened was Achan was a greedy man. He was filled with covetousness, meaning he wanted something that was not his. And so he actually stole the silver and gold. And so what had happened was Joshua and the Israelites, they went out to fight against their enemies, the Amorites, and they were defeated. They actually ran away from them because God's favor had left them because of the sin. And so Joshua did not know anything about this. And so he went to God and confronted God and asked him why. You know, he ripped his shirt. He was so devastated and distressed because all his men and just ran away, and they were looking like cowards. And he was like, this is what he said. He's devastated. What's going on, Lord? You told me that you were going to help us defeat our enemies. Our enemies were going to be given to us in our hands. And so here I'm going to be reading where God explains to Joshua why Israel was defeated by their enemies. And I'm looking at Joshua chapter 7, verses 10 through 12. And it says here, "And the Lord said unto Joshua, Get thee up, wherefore liest thou thus upon thy face? Israel has sinned, and they have also transgressed my covenant, which I commanded them. For they have even taken of the accursed thing, and have also stolen, and disassembled also. And they have put it even among their own stuff. Therefore, the children of Israel could not stand before their enemies, but turned their backs before their enemies, because they were accursed. Neither will I be with you any more, except ye destroy the accursed from among you." So what the Lord was explaining to Joshua is that one of them, as you know, if one does something, they represent them all. So one of them had blatantly disobeyed God's commands. Not only that, they took accursed things and they hid things. They took things that belonged to God, the silver and gold. As you remember, he said the silver and gold belonged to him, that they were to take it back to him. And so he took it amongst himself and put it with his things. He knew it was not his, but he stole it anyway and took it amongst himself. So the Lord, his favor had departed from them because they were in sin. The sin was not corrected. It's like when you have sin and it's not rectified and it's not dealt with, then God's favor leaves that place or that city or those people who are filled with that sin. You cannot have sin that is not corrected or resolved, and you're still within that sin, and then you expect to have God's favor. You expect to have God's mercy. That does not happen. And so as a result, the Lord allowed them to run away from their enemies. And so when Joshua found out about this, he went, of course, to Achan to confront him and to talk to him about it, to get this corrected. So here I'm reading about Achan's sin by coveting. This tells of the sin that Achan actually committed. So I'm looking at Joshua chapter 7, verses 19 through 21. And it says, "And Joshua said unto Achan, My son, give, I pray thee, glory to the Lord God of Israel, and make confession unto him, and tell me now what thou hast done. Hide it not from me." And Achan answered Joshua and said, "Indeed, I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel, and thus have I done. When I saw among the spoils a goodly Babylonish garment, and 200 shekels of silver, and a wedge of gold of 50 shekels weight, then I coveted them and took them, and behold, they are hid in the earth in the midst of my tent, and the silver under it." So Achan confessed his sin because, Joshua said to hide it not. Hide means when you're trying to cover up your sin. Achan's he was covering his sin. He took something with his eyes. He coveted something that did not belong to him because he liked it and he wanted it. He coveted it and he took it. He committed a sin. And as a result, Joshua and the rest of the Israelites, they were punished because the sin was hidden. And no one knew about it, but he hid the sin. He hid it in the ground. And so when Joshua confronted him and let him know what the Lord said, he admitted and confessed to him that, yes, he coveted. He knew it did not belong to him. He knew it was not supposed to be his. He took something that did not belong to him. And as a result, he caused God's wrath to come upon the rest of them. And so they went ahead, and after Achan confessed to Joshua, they went and he took him to the place where he buried the silver, and they dug it up, and they took it back to the place where it belonged. And so Joshua had to make it right. He couldn't just allow this to go forth, because this person, Achan, had to be punished, okay? In order for God's wrath to be kindled, in order for him to return his favor into the Israelites, there had to be some type of correction. There had to be justice done, okay? He could not just get away with the sin. And see, if Joshua did not obey God and punish Achan, God's favor would have never returned. So let's read here to the book of Joshua, chapter 7, verses 25 through 26. And it says, "And Joshua said, Why hast thou troubled us? The Lord shall trouble thee this day. And all Israel stoned him with stones and burned them with fire. After they had stoned them with stones, and they raised over him a great heap of stones unto this day. So the Lord turned from the fierceness of his anger. Wherefore the name of that place was called the Valley of Achan unto this day." So Joshua and the Israelites, they stoned Achan, and they took his life. And back in those days, that was punishment for when you did something wrong. So, of course, right now, God does not expect us to stone a person, but there is justice, okay? We have things that's called justice. There's a law, and God expects there to be justice when someone does a crime, that the crimes are not hidden. They're not covered up. Because, see, when you cover up those crimes, then the people who have been hurt, the victims, cannot get their justice. And God is not pleased with the sin. He's not pleased when his people commit sin and hide sin and do not rectify it or correct it. He has placed people in positions of authority. He has placed people in his churches, people to do justly, to act just and fair. So we're going to talk about first the definition of just, because see, God is a God that loves justice. And so I'm looking at two definitions here that for justice. Now, justice first is the maintenance or administration of what is just, especially by the impartial adjustment of conflicting claims or the assignment of merited rewards or punishment. So basically, justice is when you're giving out a punishment or reward. You're giving something to someone that they deserve. Like if someone commits a crime or someone does something, they're going to be punished. They're going to be punished. They're not going to be rewarded. Or someone does something good and they receive credit for it. They're supposed to receive credit for what they have done, not you giving credit to someone else who does not deserve it. So these are things of justice when you're acting out of justice and you're being fair. The next definition is the quality of being just, impartial or fair. So impartial or just is meaning you're not being a respecter of persons. You're not mistreating one person and refusing to give them justice because you're playing favorites, or this person, you might not like them, or they might not be a part of your specific group or part of your specific circle. And so you decide to not give that person justice when the wrong is committed unto them, and you help cover up that sin that's committed against that person. So that person continues to suffer and they're not getting their justice. Or if they do something and they're deserving of credit and reward, they're deserving of credit and recognition for what they have done, or they're deserving of a certain, monetary gain or something, but you refuse to give it to them. You withhold it because you want to give it to someone else now because they're part of that's not just. And God is a God of judgment and justice. Now I'm going to continue reading as you relieve God, his entire throne, his habitation is made up of justice. I'm looking at Psalm 89:14. It says, "Justice and judgment are the habitation of thy throne. Mercy and truth shall go before thy face." And then in 1 Kings 10:9, it says, "Blessed be the Lord thy God, which delighted in thee to set thee on the throne of Israel, because the Lord loved Israel forever. Therefore made he thee king to do judgment and justice." So he chose David to be king because he wanted him to be, he knew that he would judge fairly. As you know, David had a heart of God's own heart. And so when you have a heart after God, you're going to do justice no matter what. We're supposed to be at the point where God expects us to be fair no matter what. Even if it's a person that we know or we love in our family, if someone does wrong, they do wrong. We cannot cover up their crimes and refuse to give them punishments. Or even if someone is not in our circle, we're not supposed to withhold them of what is rightfully theirs and remove from them their reward that they're supposed to have based off of their work and what they have done, because they're not one of us or they're not in our family. This is all injustice. And God is a God of judgment and justice. And as you look at Psalm 82:3, it says, "Defend the poor and fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy." And so there are so many things going on now where The poor are not receiving their justice. People are doing things, they're coveting and taking things, they're stealing. People are covering up crimes that are committed against other people. They're covering up theft. They're covering up sexual assaults. They're covering up violence. They're covering up all types of sins. And these people are not able to receive their justice. There are people who are not able to receive their justice because either they don't walk in the same group or circle, or they don't have the money and so they get misrepresented, or these people are not part of a certain group. And so since these people run in a certain group, they protect their own. They're going to cover up their own. And so when it comes to the last days, when Jesus Christ comes back to his church, you can see this is why a lot of things are happening now. I talked about why a lot of people are being judged. Even to this day, you're seeing all types of accidents and things happening. You're hearing about car crashes, pile-ups, people being, destroyed and taken out abruptly. And this is because there is no justice. And God is judging the earth. He is judging the people because you're hiding things. You're letting people suffer. And it's like children and people who have been oppressed cannot get their justice. They cannot get their fair due justice because other people have been allowed to sin and do wicked things and nothing's being done about it. And so God is upset. And as you know, when Jesus Christ comes back, because he talks about it here, I'm looking at Revelation chapter 22, verses 11 through 12. And it says that he that is unjust, let him be unjust still. Let him be unjust still. That means let him continue to be unjust because he has not changed. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man according as his work shall be. So God is a God of impartiality. He is not partial, meaning he does not care who you are. He does not care how much money you have. He does not care which race you are. He does not care what groups or affiliates you come from or you're part of. He does not care how many degrees you hold, how many titles you hold. He does not care how much privilege and status you have on this earth. He does not care what college you graduated from, what university you graduated from, how many degrees that you have obtained. He does not care what kind of car you drive. He does not care how big your house is. He does not care if you know this person or if you know the governor's son or if you're part of your family. It runs along a whole list of judges. He don't care if you're a celebrity, you're famous. He don't care about none of that stuff. He's going to give every man according to his worth on this earth. And see, people are very partial. They look at the person on the outside. They look at the status. They look at their privilege. They look at their wealth. They look at the circle they roll with, how many of the memberships they have, the type of car they drive, how much money they have. They look at status and a person's looks and all these things they judge on the outside, and they refuse to give people justice. They refuse to judge. They show partiality. They refuse to be just and fair. And this is what God's talking about. So he says, since you allow these things to happen, there are people who are suffering and ruined and had their whole lives taken from them. But since you have decided not to give them justice and you have decided to be partial, these people have suffered. People have not been able to get justice. Children have suffered as a result of crimes that were covered up from other people have done. There have people who have lost their whole families and lost their lives and their livelihoods, and their reputations were sullied and ruined because people have decided to be partial. And God is saying in the Bible what Jesus Christ said, let them continue to be unjust. Let him continue to be wicked and unrighteous because he's going to come back. And when he comes back and judges you, he's going to give every man according to their work. Every man according to his work, you're going to be judged. He does not care who you are. He's going to judge everyone according to their work that they've done on this earth. Everything you've done. If you lied, you're going to be judged for your lying. If you murdered, he's going to be judged for your murder. If you coveted something that belonged to another person, you stole it, whether by a burnt offering, using sorcery and witchcraft, or by physical violence, he's going to judge you for it. If you covered up things, if you slandered people and you lied on them and ruined their reputation, he's going to judge you. If you committed sexual assaults and violent crimes against other people, innocent people, if you victimized them and covered it up, he doesn't care. He's going to judge you. If you embezzle and extorted and you rob and you're taking credit for other things that other people's talents and their gifts and their ideas, and you're taking credit for it and you pass it off as your own, he's going to judge you for it. He's going to give you your reward according to everything you have done. There's not one person on this earth that will escape God's just judgment. So this is what we're saying. Either you get it together now, because when God comes back, when he judges you, or when if your life suddenly ends abruptly and you have to stand before the judge, you will get it according to your work, whether you were holy or righteous or whether you were wicked and evil.